Here's 5 tips to getting great audio in Adobe Audition. Number 1, line up your secondary audio using a clapper or a hand clap. So here I have my primary audio that came from the camera and then my main audio, which is a lav that I'm wearing. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the spot where I clapped at the beginning and line them up. They rarely line up exactly here. If I move it, it's a little too much forward, but I know that right here, it's pretty well lined up. You do a quick check towards the end to make sure it's still lined up. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag it up. And there we go. Got my better sound ready to go. Number 2 is nesting and re-rendering multiple clips before you send it over to Audition. So here I have a situation where I have multiple audio clips that I've probably pulled together from different parts of me speaking. However, in a normal situation, I'd have to right-click and edit in Adobe Audition. It would come up in Audition, and I'd have to do all the editing here, and then repeat. Instead, what you can do is highlight all of them, right-click, go to Nest. Go ahead, you can give it a name if you want, and then immediately you're going to render and replace. And what this will do is just turn it back into an audio file that you can send over all together. And now all of the audio files are all in one, ready to go. Number 3 is removing background noise with noise reduction. So here we are in Audition, and what you want to do is find a spot where you're not talking. And here, this is a pretty good spot. Now we can barely hear that, so I'm going to go ahead and do kind of an extra little trick in here. Not a trick. This is just very simple. This is what everybody should do. The lav mic records in mono instead of stereo, which is pretty typical for a lav. So you want to go ahead and convert it to a stereo format and then in favorites, normalize it so that, it's pretty much up to an audio frequency you can hear. So now we can hear a little bit of that background noise. And so what I'm going to do is highlight a small section of it, making sure that it doesn't have any clicks or noises or any of my voice in it. Once you do that, you go to Effects, Noise Reduction, Capture Noise Print. This is going to basically tell the computer, these are the frequencies we want to remove. And then you double click to highlight everything. If you aren't zoomed out all the way, you might not have everything. And so when you double click, it would only select some. So make sure you're all the way out. You can do that, or you can double click. And then we've got everything highlighted. Now we go back to Effects, Noise Reduction, but we want to choose the process instead of the Capture Noise Print. Pretty simple here. If I drop my things back here, you've got what's called a noise floor, and that's that background noise that's always going to be in a clip. So if you want to completely remove that, which I do, that's the yellow stuff right here. So I'm just going to bring it up. My normal settings when I try to do this is 10 and 100. You might have to dial it back if your noise floor is really high and your signal isn't very high, or your signal being your voice. If they're closer together, this is much harder and it won't work as well. The further away you can get those, the lower the noise floor and the higher the signal, your voice. And it works great. Hit apply and you can see that while there's still some left over, there's very little, and it's not going to be anything that we can hear. Number 4 is correcting the noise peaks for normalization. So you can see here, I've got this really large wave peak. That's usually when you start talking, you're really loud first and you kind of dwindle down. You can see right here, this is a much lower frequency, much softer. But we want it to sort of even out. And even though we already, click on everything, we already did our normalization, so it's not going to do anything else because this peak is too high. What we can do is go to our effects rack, though, and just go to one of the presets, the default preset called Voice Leveler and Noise Gate. Going to add that and apply it, and there you go. You can see that the majority of them are now much better, and then you can go ahead and add in your normalize. If this still isn't good enough, and to me it's not good enough yet, what you can do, and this takes a little time, is you go in and you individually bring down any of those higher peaks, right? Try to get as much of the sound as you can, because you don't want anything to sound weird, if you have it lower or higher significantly from everything else. Now you can see this is mostly the same, and then I can just basically pull up all of that until generally this -3 line is where I like to have my audio. The peaks can go up into the -2 or 1, but -3 is generally where I want to have the majority. And then now we have a nice good signal. We can just hit Command S and it'll go back to Premiere. Whoop. Sometimes you have to double that save. And there we go. We now have a much better signal. It's all cleaned up and it's all leveled out. Number 5, before we send it over though, in Audition, what you want to do, since we know we still have a little bit of noise, especially like right here, we want to go ahead and just drag out fades on the beginning and the end. Now, we know this is just a chair sound that I make, so I can just drop it to 0, but add that fade. These fades will prevent the edges of your clips from having any sound, because they will make a weird clicking noise or a hiss noise when that clip first starts. So you want to always remember to trim those edges with a fade. That's 5 tips to make your audio great audio in Adobe Audition.